Good morning, everybody. Welcome to here we go. Get my camera going here. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. It is March 24th, 2023. Our agenda this morning is we'll start out with success stories. I do know of one person who's landed, who sent me a note. We'll then go to our 30-second introductions. We'll then go to our committee reports. We'll hear about workshop, job fairs, and practice interview team, the interview success workshop, and the career tip of the week. And then we'll have our main event right around the top of the hour. For those people on Zoom, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please just enter those questions into the chat window. For those watching on Facebook, please just enter your questions in the comment field. We are monitoring both feeds. We'll be sure to get those questions answered for you. Please note this event is being recorded and it's currently live on Facebook. The recording will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. All right, well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeff Morris. Back in 2007, I took over facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. The group's around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when a prior leader of the group had landed a job, and somehow I volunteered to do this. In 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I launched careerusa.org. Yes, thank you. Geneva, you says, thank you. Something up with the sound. Your voice is really deep, like Barry White deep. Yes, I've been sick for the last couple of weeks. I'm currently in San Antonio, and last 2 days, I've been speaking at a conference. So that's why my voice is much lower than normal. Now, I wish it would stay this way, but it won't. Okay, so in 2012, I launched careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I have written a book called What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me in person, I usually have copies with me. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team. You're going to hear more about that in just a moment. Excuse me. And you get this cough and you just can't get rid of it. All right, success stories. We'd like to start off with good news. Anybody out there, any landings, any great news for somebody who'd like to share? Going once, going twice. All right, well, I've heard of one person, Cassandra Renard, was part of this group a while back. She wanted to share some exciting news. She recently landed at the Fort Worth Botanical Gardens working with their adult education department. In this role, she gets to coordinate and facilitate community education classes. So it's right up with her alley what she wanted to do. I'm also providing local organizations and businesses with learning and L&D solutions on a contract basis in her spare time. I want to thank you again for connecting me way back in the summer of 2022. Your advice was invaluable as I learned how to interview and job search effectively. The work you do with the Dallas Pit Crew is both needed and appreciated. So Cassandra, like I said, she just landed. Good news, successes, congratulations to her. All right, anybody else out there? Going once, going twice? All right, what we'd like everybody to do now is in the chat window, put in your 30-second introductions. We want to know what your name is, your phone number, your email address, position you're looking for, a couple target companies, and then hit the return key. For those in the room, you should have a little slip of paper you can fill out, so we'll get all that information, and I will use this to update the roster. It won't be updated or put out until Monday because I'm not going to be back in town until Monday, but we will get all that information put out so we can help you in your job search. For those people who are on Facebook, if you want to put your information in the comment field, I will delete it immediately after the meeting. So let's put 30 seconds on the clock. see here. Also, I'll use this information to update our roster. So if you want to get on our roster, if you want to find out about future programs that we're doing, please make sure we've got your contact information. Please make sure we can mark you here. That way we will get you all that information and get that out this afternoon to everybody. All right, what we'd like to do now is for those people that are at the church right now, if you will, please give us your 30-second introductions. We'll let you go around the room.
Okay, hang on, Jeff. Good morning. My name is Anthony Archery. I'm a retail specialist and general manager, and I'm just looking for a great place to land with all my ability and talent that I can offer the company to solve their problem. Again, my name is Anthony Archery.
Thank you, Anthony.
We can't hear them very well, just FYI.
Yeah, we're not using our normal speakers, so they're just talking into the laptop that's there. So those who are there, please speak up. Use your outside voice.
My name is Libby Bennett. I am in HR, looking for a role in employee relations engagement, but open to other HR roles as well, obviously depending on the circumstances. And I am in Dallas.
And your name is?
Libby Bennett.
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. What else we have there? I see somebody else.
Hi, Jeff and everybody online. I'm Drew Puckett, and I'm a marketing technology manager, and I help, I use my analytical and critical thinking to run great programs, find hidden facts and data, and develop great solutions. And my name is Drew Puckett.
Thank you, Drew. And who else do we have there?
Hi, I'm Carrie Stumpfall. I'm a strategic operations financial person. My last role, I've been director of asset management in the real estate industry, and I'm looking for a role this time where I have P&L responsibility with a growing company. It's nice to meet you. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Is that everybody?
That's it.
That's it. All right. Well, thank you very, very much. All right. We'll hear from Walt in just a second here. All right. If you know somebody who's recently unemployed, somebody recently who got laid off, if they're not sure what to do in their job search, please let them know about Career DFW and Career USA, two totally free websites that are just out there to help you in the job search. It's free. The sites do not collect any personal information. They're just there to help you in your job search. One of the things you'll find on the careerdfw.org website is a series of calendars. This one sort of shows everything that's going on. The stuff in pink are job fairs, the gold are special workshops. The purple are webinars that are going on that anybody can view around the country. The blue are in-house networking meetings that are happening in person. So, if you're looking for something to do, there's something going on 5-6 days a week sometimes. Check out the calendars for the latest information. All right, let's talk a little bit about the practice interview team. So you remember, your LinkedIn profile and your resume don't get you a job. What they do get you is a phone call. How well you practice your interviewing skills, that's what's going to get you your next job. So the practice interview team is totally free. They're just there to help you land your next great opportunity. They're there to let you practice your interviewing skills. Their motto is practice early, practice often. You can practice as many times as you like. It's just not a one-shot deal. But this would allow you to, come whatever stage you're at. You can just find a generic job description off the internet. Or if you're in the second or third round of an interview, just let us know where you are during the interview, and that'll be really helpful. All you have to do is send a resume and a job description, where you are in your job search, and your schedule 2 to 4 days out to dallaspitcrew@gmail.com. If you want more information, just go to dallaspitcrew.com, and you'll find more information out there about the program. The other thing is the Pit Crew is also meeting in person. So on the first and third Wednesdays of each month, you can meet and watch a real actual practice interview. It will be at 1 o'clock on Wednesdays at Christ United Methodist Church, corner of Coit and Parker and Plano. Same room that you all are in right now for those that are in person right now. There'll be no online options on those 2 weeks, but the second, the fourth, and the fifth week of the month, there will be. I can tell you this coming up this week, Chad Hines, who's on the call with us today, he will be doing a practice interview. So for those around the country, he will be doing one. It'll be on Zoom, so you'll be able to watch it. We will mute everybody's mics and everybody's cameras, so it's just Chad and the people who are interviewing him on that coming up Wednesday. So come join us. You'll be able to watch a real practice interview either in person or online. All right, time to hear about the Interview Success Workshop. Good morning, Walt.
Well, good morning, everyone. Jeff, my voice has dropped in the last couple of weeks, and I was talking to my brother, and he said, "Sounds good, keep it that way." But I don't have any other symptoms, so maybe the Lord has said, I think I'll just do this permanently. Well, welcome, everyone. My name's Walt Glass, and I enjoy helping people with their interviewing skills as well. I heartily recommend the PIT Crew, which is a real practice interview. Team members do a lot of research to help you improve your skills and confidence, which is what I do. I am working with this Interview Success Workshop, teaching ourselves how to sell ourselves. Everyone agrees that we're in a selling situation, but I don't see very many people as candidates in practicing interviews where they are selling themselves. So just what does that mean? Well, back in 2000, when I screwed up an interview, I decided to do a little bit deeper dive. I developed a model called I Am, I Do, I Help. Companies are buying who we are, what we do, and how we can help them. And I also would like to show us how we can differentiate ourselves from other candidates. Interviewers hear a lot of the same things over and over again. What are those things, and how can we be a little different when we are talking, interviewing, and having a discussion with them? So the workshop is free. Look me up on LinkedIn. That QR code will start you a message to my Yahoo email address where you just send me a note, and that's the content of the message, and ask to get registered. You have to be registered to attend. I only do 1 or 2 people at a time. I will respond with potential dates for you to select so that we can get you on board. Now, what's the other difference between the PIT Crew and the Interview Success Workshop? The workshop is extremely informal. It is not formal. It's a learning interview. We're learning how to sell. Yes, you'll be interviewed. We'll cover the 12 basic questions, categories of questions. We'll talk about the strategies, options, structures, ways we might answer a question, because it always depends on the question, who's asking, and where you are in the process. So send me that email. Come on down. We're going to have some fun while we're learning. No stress, no anxiety. And I call the workshop Learning Without Squirming. So are you expecting another poem? Maybe you already know them. Well, to get rid of those fears, we have to get off our rears and practice so the best candidate we can show them.
Thank you very, very much, Walt. Great. We always look forward to new poems every Friday. That's really great.
Just
All right.
Jeff,
do-
also let you know that Lily Cador also showed up here. She's present.
Okay, great. Thank you for showing up today. Wonderful. Sorry I can't be with you all today. I'll be back with everybody again next Friday. All right. Time for the career tip of the week. Rosanna is not with us today. She had to last minute take her son to the doctor this morning, so you get to hear my deep voice read today's tip of the week. So today's tip of the week is dated March 19th, 2023. It's layoffs are making LinkedIn the new hot social network. Vulnerability is having a moment on the platform as mass layoffs have been hitting the tech industry. When Rob Fishman, a former account executive at a tech startup, was laid off in January, he wasn't sure how to talk about it. Even though tens of thousands of tech employees at startups like his and major tech companies like Google, Meta, and Microsoft, which happens to own LinkedIn, were being laid off, he said still there was a stigma attached to talking about it. But he wanted people to know that he was in the market for a new job, so he decided to post on LinkedIn. Fishman wrote a lighthearted, self-deprecating post listing out everything he did on the day he was let go. For instance, read the email that he was laid off. He called his finance. He wallowed in self-pity for a while. He drank a large margarita. He drank another large margarita, and then he started to edit his resume. The post ended up getting over 40,000 views, nearly 500 likes, and most surprisingly, a bunch of offers of support from people he had never met. It was complete and total LinkedIn stranger, just completely altruistic people, not hiring managers, said Fishman, who said he had 6 job interviews in the 2 weeks after being laid off, and all those opportunities came from LinkedIn. In the past several months, as changing economic conditions, overhiring, stock market drops have led to mass layoffs in tech, media, and other industries. Vulnerability is having a moment on LinkedIn. It's true that early in the pandemic, many people turned to LinkedIn to share their stories about how lockdown was negatively impacting their jobs. For the most part, though, the professional social networking site has long had a reputation of being the place to go when people like to boast about their career. Now the tone has shifted. People are sharing their personal layoff stories more prominently on LinkedIn, especially if they're tech workers. Recode spoke with over a half dozen tech professionals who regularly use the platform, but are suddenly finding it more relevant for their profession and even personal life. They're using LinkedIn to announce they've been laid off, find out who among their former colleagues are also being let go, and connect with industry peers who are sharing job leads. Importantly, they're applying to jobs directly on the site. Suddenly, LinkedIn has become a very popular social media platform for tech workers during this economic slump. And that's reflected in numbers. Web analytics firm SimilarWeb found that monthly traffic to LinkedIn grew more than 60% January 2020 to January 2023. And from December 2022 to January, it went up 17%. LinkedIn saw record user engagements last quarter and a 10% increase in revenue year over year. As of early February, 18.6 million people have added an open to work green photo frame to their LinkedIn profile photos, up from 6 million in February of last year. Users first got this option back in 2020. Excuse me. It was an unwritten assumption before the job seekers have to be as private as possible. Director of Product Management for Careers at LinkedIn said, reflecting on the mood at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020, when a wave of COVID-related layoffs hit a number of industries. I think what has changed now is it's becoming more the norm. There is complete destigmatization about that. The recent growth in layoffs is part of a seismic shift for a whole generation of tech employees who've only known abundant perks, seamlessly unlimited growth in their sector. Suddenly, many of them are out of a job, realizing they need to pivot, maybe even away from tech. And for many, LinkedIn is a starting point on how to make that change. So a couple points here that I want to talk about. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. If you want to go back, you can go read the tip and find out. But one of the things they talk about, why people want to talk about being laid off. Many tech professionals who once rarely used LinkedIn, the platform has become a helpful place to share about their situation, especially if they've been cut off from internal work communication channels like Slack or workplace listserv. They're also turning to the platform at a time when some industry people who used to build a professional presence on Twitter seem to be using the network less. Before the current slump, if you worked at a big tech company or a hot startup or a company security was high and cash was free flowing, you probably didn't even feel the need to post regularly on LinkedIn to boost your career. But everything has changed after this recent wave of layoffs. The second point they want to make is not everybody wants to be professionally vulnerable on LinkedIn. Even though LinkedIn has become a place where people are more comfortable sharing, there are limits to the vulnerability people show and what kind of posts are successful. Not every post gets attention. Some lead nowhere. And for some, the pressure to post on LinkedIn itself can be a source of major stress. After Rob Fishman posted his LinkedIn note about drinking margaritas and wallowing in self-pity after losing his job, he wrote a follow-up post about the upside of sharing his layoff situation on LinkedIn and encouraged others to do the same. That post went viral also. A recently laid off tech industry peer, software architect, said he wasn't having the same experience. Miller posted about being laid off, which is also vulnerable but more straightforward and less humorous. Didn't attract much attention. They hadn't connected to him to any job leads, so he decided to comment on Fishman's latest post, saying as much. I was being a smartass, like, yeah, that's sweet, you're yelling from an ivory tower, but the rest of us weren't getting this kind of traction. Ironically, Miller's comment on Fishman's viral post ended up catching the attention of a LinkedIn stranger who did connect with Miller with some job leads. So in a way, it turned into another LinkedIn layoff success story. This is a really long article, so I'm going to sort of go here to the end. So while LinkedIn is finding more ways to keep people on its site, showing them more news and investing in career influences, it's still a social network framed squarely around careers. Our vision for economic opportunity. We're not here for the extra clicks, says LinkedIn. The easiest mode of expansion would be cat videos, right? That's not the goal. The goal is to help people grow, learn, and find their next job. So far, the goal seems to be working out well for LinkedIn, at least during this period of great economic uncertainty in tech. So if you want to read the full tip, just go to careerdfw.org or careerusa.org. You'll be able to read it. The tip's there up and through tomorrow afternoon. A new tip should pop up. Hopefully it does it automatically because I'm not going to be home, but hopefully it'll be there. So you can check it out. Like I said, I did go and I cut out about half the tip because it was really pretty long, but pretty interesting. And like I said, I've spent the last 2 days talking with job seekers and talking with people here in San Antonio at the convention, talking to them about LinkedIn and why they need to be on it. There are a lot of people down here, they say people are job hopping all the time. And, you know, the reason they came to this convention is so they could network with other people. So LinkedIn was a very valuable tool for many people here. All right, today for lunch, join Walt and Anthony and whoever else is going to come go join us at Jason's Deli. I wish I was there. I don't know where I'm eating lunch today. It'll be someplace fast food, I imagine, as we're driving around town. Go to Jason's Deli, 4801 West Parker Road. It's on the northeast corner of Parker and Preston. They've got a great soup and sandwich. They've got sandwiches. They've got big old baked potatoes if you're in the mood for a baked potato with different stuff in it. So please come join Walt, Anthony, and whoever else can at lunch today, 1145 Jason's Deli. All right, in just a moment, we're going to hear from PJ Dunn. He's going to talk about Clifton Strength Finders and Core Clarity. I just want to mention what's coming up the next couple of weeks. Next week, negotiations, closing the deal, what you're worth, and that's with Crystal Yates. We'll talk all about negotiating and closing the deal. And then in 2 weeks, being the first Friday of the month, first Friday, it'll be that's the Friday before Easter. We will do open forum. We'll talk about whatever it is you would like to talk about in your job search. All right, it's time for our main event now. PJ Dunn, he's been with us on a yearly basis for the last many years. What he's going to talk about is, I just think it's a great subject, talking about strength finders. I know I talked to many people here at the conference this past 2 days. You know, had they taken strength finders? Some people said yes, some had, and I explained to them why I think maybe they should do it. And I told many of them about today's session, that if they don't get to see it live, they can go back and watch the recording after I get it uploaded. So PJ, thank you for being with us. I'll let you take over and you can tell us a little bit more about you and tell us all about Strength Finders and Core Clarity.
That'd be great. Love it, love it. Let me see if I get my bearings here right, get everything set up so we're good to go here. So we're doing the whole share screen thing. There we are. Well, we all know that at the end of the day, people are going to ask you questions. Questions of how we ascertain or try to understand what it is or who it is that's sitting in front of us. And when someone asks you, what do you do? What are you good at? What's your natural thing? What causes you fear? What makes you get excited? What gives you that resilience gene to kick in when things are going rough? When you can't describe that, especially on an interview, they're going to give you the old boom, 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 boom sound because they're looking for assets. What I love about Clifton Strengths, and there's several other assessments out there, but what I love about Clifton Strengths is it gives you a language to explain what's great about you, about what you bring to the table. I will say this several times, and it means a lot. And that is when an asset can't explain what it is that it brings to the table, it's no longer an asset. It's now a liability. Okay. So now we're going to learn today. We're going to look at Clifton Strengths. We're going to look at some of the talents that are out there. If you've taken the assessment, then we'll give you a deeper knowledge. If you haven't taken the assessment, I'll speak in terms so that you can get the gist, even though you may not have taken the assessment yet. So we start off with the first thing, and the first thing is questions. Life is full of questions. So you'll see things like, hey, why do I do what I do? Right? Some people have a fear of failure, while other people have a fear of success. Two different things. And then there's some people that have a fear of both. There are some people who can tell you when they've got that rocky music going and they're ready to go and just champion the world. And then there's others that tell you, I couldn't get out of bed. There's no way I could go back into that office again and deal with blank, blank, and blank. So we're always asking that question. We're also asking, why does it seem that others seem to have more talents than me? Right? Why did that guy get such a great command with speech? Or why does she have such great empathy and she can really hear people before she speaks out? We're always wondering. And if that's the case, if they have a superpower, what's my superpower? Right? And if I have a superpower, how do I level the playing field with my superpower? Right? So we're gonna dive all into that today. So I love quotes, so I hope you love them too. Here's one from Ralph Waldo Emerson that I think ties in nicely with today's topic. And you see it right there in front of you. He's saying, it's not what's behind you, it's not what's before you, it's what's actually inside of you that matters the most. And once again, if you can't explain what that is in a compelling way, especially on a job interview, then you're going to leave the other person holding a bag, and it's not a good bag. So Clifton Strengths, let's just get some of that 101 going first, and we'll dive into even deeper stuff. And by the way, if you have any questions, I would rather it be a conversation than a one-way lecture. So feel free to raise your hand, unmute yourself, and ask a question. That does not bother me. It does not interrupt my flow at all. I just like the engagement. So let's look at some of the facts behind the Clifton Strengths. It was designed to do just what Emerson was talking about. Help us best understand what it is that we bring to the table. The interesting thing is everybody brings something to the table. So even if you've been jobless now for a couple of months and you're starting to think maybe there is no hope for you because nobody seems to be calling you back, well, the truth still is when you're working, when you're not working, you still have talents. The difference is some of us understand them and we own those talents and we polish them until they become strengths. And I'm going to help you with that today too. It's another factoid about this. It's not designed to tell you what you should do in terms of jobs. It's designed to tell you how you would approach or do anything. See, I don't like those assessments that say, oh, you got analytical, you've got this, you've got that. That means you can only be a lawyer. I think that's horrible. I think that's a huge disservice. The difference is when you're made and we're built and we are created, we're wonderfully created, there's many things we can do. It's just in different contexts. And then you want to get into the context or get involved with the context that makes the most sense for you. For example, some of you like working by yourself. That's fine. That's your context where you will thrive more than if you're sitting in the center of a call center where everybody keeps coming by your desk and keeps talking to you. That might drive you crazy if you're a focused person, if you're a disciplined person. because you can't stay focused if people are bothering. So there's these little nuances we'll get to see just because of strengths. It's also designed not as a personality test. See, the people do this like they do with the Bible and the Quran and the Vedas. They throw it all together and they say, oh, those are all sacred texts. That's what they are. They're all right. Well, some people do the same thing with the assessments nowadays. Nowadays, I think there's an assessment for big toes, green eyes, and we have an assessment for everything now. I don't like them all. I'll be honest with you and straightforward. So this isn't a personality test. This is an assessment that understands your character traits, how you're wired, what you bring to the table, regardless of your personality, regardless of your behavior, because personalities can change and so can your behavior. Dr. Clifton wanted to understand what's the one true line we know we can expect if we talk to a Jeff Morris or if we talk to a Walt Glass. What's the one thing we'll always see when we talk to Walt? Because it'll be there, because he's been who he is, and it's a character trait, and you'll know what that is. Can he massage it and do different things with it? Of course. But Walt Glass is going to always be a Walt Glass. He's always going to be the original, and what makes him original are those strengths. I see her going, shucks, there's some other things I want to learn, right? And it's designed for you to focus on something better. It's designed for you to focus on your strengths, not your weakness. You've heard it said, people said, well, if you can just fix this and bring this up to 100 and bring this up to this, and they start treating it like scales. Well, you know, Aretha Franklin wasn't a good accountant. She didn't need to be. I'm glad she wasn't an accountant. I'm glad she was a gospel singer, because the world would have missed one of the greatest voices ever, right? So there's some interesting things about when you focus on what's right with you versus focusing on the things that you think you need to level up on so that you can be better. If we're all good at everything, then nobody's unique at anything. But you'll notice when you hang out with people, what you will see is there's certain people in the room that have a command. They have a presence. There are certain people in the room who you can tell they don't want that presence. They're in the background and they're the best note takers you ever heard. And they'll ask great questions because they get that. You'll notice when you're around people, people will fall into a role because it's what's comfortable to them. It's how they're wired. So I like that Dr. Clifton gave us more words to describe it so that it isn't something vacuous and vague. So the end design here with Clifton Strengths was to provide vivid language so that you can articulate your proclivities, both apparent and non-apparent. This is huge because when you're on a job interview, essentially as a job, if I'm the CEO and I'm interviewing you, I want to know who are you? And if you can't tell me who you are, what you do, why you do it the best, what you struggle with, and how you've mitigated that, then you're not a complete person. Again, what am I in? If I'm the CEO interviewing you, I'm in the asset collection business. I'm looking for assets. Nobody hires weaknesses. They hire strengths, and then they put those strengths with other strengths, and that team appears not to have a weakness because of all the strengths that I've lined up to put together to show them how they work off each other so that they can work in harmony. That's why we have assessments, because we're trying to create a metrics to help us understand people. But since we didn't create ourselves, it's kind of hard for us to know. And since we didn't come with a book, an information book to tell you, this is how you talk to a Dion or a Kathy, you know, or to a Jeff. We don't get that. We have to ascertain it. We have to observe, watch, and see how that plays out. Let's keep moving. So that was the individual piece. Look at what organizations do. 200 out of the Fortune 500 use Clifton Strengths, right? Some of these companies are not around, so you might ask a question about that, but most of these are here. And then what we noticed is what Facebook would do is they would hire someone and then they would put them into a job based off of their strengths, rather than saying, look, we're looking for a frontline manager. And then that's it. No, they hired people who gave them that great, compelling story of who they are and what they bring to the table. Then they had them take the assessment and then they said, here's where we're best going to use you. Here's where we're best going to use you. And here's how we're best going to use you. It's a little different and it's a little bit more, I guess it's more personal because it's being able to say, I want you to be you. I don't want you to try to be like Jeff or Walt or whoever. I want you to be you because you bring something unique to the table. So let's see it. Show me, right? That's what we're saying. So what Dr. Clifton did is he discovered that there were 34 prevalent talent themes in all of us. What makes us unique is the order that they're in. So if you've taken the assessment, you get your top 5. If you order just your top 5, if you order the full 34, you have them. But what you'll see is that there's certain talents that float to the top, meaning these are the ones that you lead with, which is important. Then you notice that there's talents that are at the bottom, but notice they're not called weaknesses. They're called, in Dr. Clifton's mind, lesser talents, meaning you just don't reach for them as much as you do for your strategic if you're a number one strategic, or your empathy if you're a number one empathy. And that's okay, because we need people who are different, who fill up that whole swath of personality, because when God creates, he doesn't create junk. He creates with order and purpose every time. Go back and read how the earth was built. Read how the ark was built, the Ark of the Covenant. Specific. Everything has a purpose so that it can be used correctly. Now, imagine we're God's workmanship. We have the Imago Dei on us. So we have his thumbprint. So he's going to make us great. The difference is, don't you let somebody tell you you're not great, because right now you haven't had a job in 12 months and you've had a job for 20 years and now you're afraid because you're back in the market again. And how do I do this and how do I do that? I don't want to make it sound like it's super simple, but I can say, if you know who you are, and if you know how you win, and you know how you mitigate losses, that's the story you tell. And you get in front of a mirror and you tell that story over and over and over again until you know it. So where when someone sits down and goes, all right, tell me, what's your greatest strength? That shouldn't make you scared at all. And when they say, what's your greatest weakness? That should also not scare you, right? So cheat code on this real fast. When somebody asks you, hey, so what's your greatest weakness? Let me tell you, as a behavioral strategist, what they want to know is will you deflect and tell a joke, which means you can't handle stress, you can't handle talking about difficult things, or you're going to come up with something that sounds fake and they're going to go, forget that. But see, with strengths, you know this. If I am leading with achiever, the number one up there in terms of alphabetical order, I know that the greatest thing about achievers is they get things done. But you know, every positive has a downside. Achievers are also the first people on your team to burn out. Why? Because they're constantly energized by tasks, moving. They may not stop and smell the roses along the way. And if they're not careful, they can burn out. So now you see the conversation I'm having with the interviewer. Hey, so what's your greatest strength? Well, for me, if there's a task and I can put it down, it will get laid down, it will get done. I love seeing the process go all the way through. I like to be the one doing it. So what's your greatest weakness then? Well, sometimes what happens is if I get so involved, I can miss other things and it can lead to just some sort of feeling not great, not well. But what I've learned to do to mitigate that is I set in boundaries. And the boundary is I make sure I do 8 things today that I must get done. And then I can think about 3 other things. Instead of before, I would have tried to do all of them in one day. Right? Oh, wow. What did you just tell the interviewer? Number 1, you're self-aware. Number 2, you spent some money to learn more about yourself, which means you're willing to invest in yourself. When I see that you're willing to invest in yourself, then as the CEO interviewing you, I want to say, okay, great, this person already invested in himself, then I will invest in them. Right? So this nonsense about being nervous on the job interview, if you know your strengths, no sir, no ma'am. Because all they're asking you to do is say, all right, CEO of you, tell me how you work. And see, as the interviewer, I'm the CEO of the company. I know the company better than you, but you know you better than you. And you should be able to say it in a compelling way, right? Because that's what they're looking for. Again, asset collection business. I only collect assets if I'm the CEO. I don't have time to hold hands with people who don't have that space yet. But that's okay. We can get there, right? Because not everybody sounds perfect right off the bat, right? And that's what's great about this. So let's define some terms here. And also I put a scripture up. I hope that's okay. I hope I don't offend anybody with that. But you see here in Ephesians 2:10, we're God's workmanship. Again, not made in Mexico, not made in Malaysia, not made in Indonesia, made by God. That's what's stamped on every last one. And we know that God doesn't build trash. He doesn't build junk. He doesn't build unpurposeful random things. It has order and a preciseness about it, right? And he prepared this and knew this beforehand so that we should walk in Ephesians 2:10. It's a wonderful scripture. If you're feeling depressed, if you're getting beat down, go back and read that scripture, please. Read it to where you can say it backwards and forwards, all right? So when I say, what is a talent? Let me open this up a little bit for those. I want to make sure, because I can't see you, but I do want the interaction. I don't want to just talk at you. So when you hear the term talent, anybody tell me what comes to mind when you hear the word talent?
You can just hold down your space bar to unmute your mic and answer his question.
I think it's a God-given gift.
Love it. Yes. Anyone else?
In the chat window, Dion said, what you're good at.
Yes. Love it. Anyone else want to throw a definition out there of talent? Let's see what you're working with.
Well, in the Bible, their talents are money as well. So
Yeah, it's a parable. You just use it as a parable. Absolutely. Let's take a look at this. This is how we're defining it. This is how Dr. Don Clifton defined it after looking at this over 50 years. I want you to see this. Naturally, a naturally reoccurring pattern of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied. Productively is put there because if you're good at being annoying, that's not a talent. You're annoying people, right? But I want you to see this. It's a naturally reoccurring. It means it's innate. And notice Clifton went to your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Not just thoughts, not just feelings, not just behaviors, right? So DISC measures behaviors. It says that you're either dominant, you're either inspiring or inspirational. That's the I. The S is steady, and the C is compliant. Then the Myers-Briggs tells you that it's the personality, right? It's the 16 personalities. Well, Dr. Don Clifton looked at all of them because behaviors can change and so can personality over time. But he wanted to understand who is this person that we can count on when we see him that we know is going to show up. So there it is. God made you with a naturally reoccurring. You don't have to think about it. It just is in you. And you know what thing it is that you've done where the hair stood up on the back of your neck when you were doing it. Or you know it when someone said to you, man, you know what? You're so good at that. Man, you made that look easy. And you're going, really? I thought everybody could do this. No, I can't write like that. I can't talk like that. I can't listen as well as you listen. I don't ask the kinds of questions you ask, right? When you hear people saying things like that to you, that means we're touching on a strength, something that could be a clue that we've got a strength here, right? Because the strengths that are in your top 5, that's what you lead with. You keep grabbing to the things that you most like, most appeals to you, right? Let's do another one. We've talked about talents, but talent and strengths are 2 different things. When I say strength, anybody unmute, tell me what's a strength?
What you're strong in.
Okay, yeah. What else?
Things
Wanna
that come easier than others.
Yeah, sometimes this just comes to you without even you thinking about it. Let's take a look at the definition we're working with. I want you to see this. This is on purpose. Near perfect performance while doing an activity, oftentimes without even thinking about it. You just do it. Just like when you get in your car, your brain already knows how to start the car. It already does it for you. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about how much pressure to put on the pedal to give it gas so you don't jerk the car. When you turn, you don't oversteer. Your body already knows what you've done because you've done it a million times. So it's saying, I've got this. You go ahead and think about the drive to work. In terms of the drive itself, I got it. Now imagine if the body can do that. Imagine when something's a strength, that means just like your subconscious, which is doing all the running for you underneath, it's the part of the iceberg you can't see, right? When you polish a talent, meaning you work in it, we'll talk about how you build that up, it becomes a strength. When it becomes a strength, then you can aim it. When you can aim it, you have mastery. And the last time I checked, people that master things get paid. People don't want to learn from somebody who hasn't mastered something, right? They want to know, have you mastered that? I want to learn from you because you've mastered it, right? That's possible. Near perfect performance. I want you to understand that's how great God made us. Now, this one we all know. This one, y'all, we can go on for hours, but let's hear this. What's a weakness then? That's a talent, that's a strength. What's a weakness?
I think it's something I can do, but it's not my best performance.
Yeah. What else? What's a weakness? You know how it feels when you're in your weakness zone, right?
Something that creates more effort or thought to perform, to do.
Excellent. Yeah. This thing has you so conscious that you're worried that you might fail And then if you're worried that you might fail, you might not even try it because you don't want to fail in front of people and look bad. So therefore you step back. And other people go, ah, that's not a strong point of his. Look how he stepped away rather than lean into it.
In the chat
That's-
window, Jane put down imperfect or inconsistent performance.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's driven by something. Let's take a look at that. And thank you for that. You're spot on. It's behaviors. Sometimes your greatest strength is your greatest weakness that get in the way of prime performance. There are people who are really, really good at what they're doing. We call it the imposter syndrome. Now it's called the imposter phenomenon because it's not actually a syndrome. It's just anxiety that's overwrought that can later on become worse. But it's behaviors that you might say, well, no, I'm not good at this. I'm not as, Jeff is better at speaking than I am. So I'll just let him do all the speaking engagements at our company. See, that's a weakness. You're cutting yourself short. You're telling yourself you can't do something, maybe because it isn't your favorite thing to do, but it doesn't mean you couldn't do it if you needed to, right? So sometimes it is those behaviors that get in the way, or it's seeing, using your strengths in the wrong way at the wrong time. For example, if you're at a funeral and somebody's father, let's say, has died, that's not the time to come up and go, cheer up, old pal. At least they're in heaven now. At least I'm not on those machines anymore. At least they're not hurting. That's not the time to do that. While that's true, that may not be the time, because at that moment, that person's missing dad. Dad's the one that taught them how to ride a bike. Dad's the one that taught them how to tie their shoes. And if you walk up because you're Mr. Positivity and you start trying to skip past the grief, which grief is okay. You have to grieve. God grieved, right? We saw what we were doing to his planet. He grieved, right? He took that flood and took care of some business, right? But I want you to see that when you're using the talents or the strengths out of context, you can actually cause more problems. Because sometimes the person at the funeral isn't looking for a positivity person. They're looking for an empathy person. Because an empathy person isn't going to walk up and say that because they can feel their pain. So they know I would never say that. Whereas the positive person goes, well, what's wrong with what I'm saying? It's true. It is going to be better. We should be happy. We should not be, right? They're saying right things. But see, empathy goes, this ain't the time. I'm not going to say that to them. And so the empathy walks up and says something different. The empathy person says, hey, Tom, my father passed away a couple of years ago. And yeah, it's a moment. Hey, if you need anything, just give me a call. And then they put that hand on the shoulder, let them know, make that eye contact, and they walk away and let this person have their grief. They don't come up and try to, come on, just get positive, guy. Quit being all negative. Come on. They're not, because they understand. No, that's not how I would feel if that hurt me. So that's how we have to understand our context. So let's take a look at this now. I want to give you this is the framework here that will set you free, because most of my clients are attorneys. I ask them every time I do this. I've been doing this for 15 years. Hey, take this apart and find a problem with this axiom. So far, me, 150, them, 0. Nobody's figured out how to break this down and say where it's not true. So what does it say? Talent, which every one of us has, plus knowledge, which can be gained by reading books, observing, watching things, plus skill, which is something you can pick up. Skills can be taught. And practice, which is just use, repetition, it becomes a strength. If you say it didn't, then do you have the knowledge? Do you have all the knowledge on the topic of the thing you're trying to do? Do you have the skills? Have you said, look, I need to get better at this? Have you practiced skills? And then, of course, it's just practice, practice, practice. When you do that, it becomes a strength. What's great here is this doesn't say you have to be black, you have to be white, you have to be male, you have to be a believer, you have to be a non-believer, you have to be from Texas. There is no boxes that this puts you in. It's either you know your talents and you're working them, or you're not. That's really the difference between somebody who's Brady, who wins 7 Super Bowls, and somebody who only wins 1 Super Bowl. Right? You can see it out there. So let's take a look at this. How do these talents grow? They grow with investment in time in them. So if you're a speaker and you want to get better at speaking, you need to be where people are speaking. You need to sit on panels. You need to be doing whatever it is that you love to do more. The more you're involved in it, faster you'll pick it up. This goes for language. You want to learn French? If you can do Babbel, which is fine, But if you go to France and live with a couple that can speak a little bit of English, watch what happens. They'll learn English off of you and you'll learn French off of them. And it happens almost naturally. That's how babies learn. They watched you talk, and that's how they picked up dada and mom, right? So notice it grows with the investment. And then of course, set proper expectations. Don't tell yourself, well, I'm going to learn how to be the best golfer in just 5 months. That's not really, that's not really attainable in that way, right? And then of course, set yourself up with recognition. When you do hit a milestone, celebrate it with other people who also are celebrating their milestones with their strengths. You see, there's a way we can build people up. If negativity on the internet and everywhere else can bring people down and have people act crazy, what do you think positivity would do when it's real, when you're experiencing it, and then you get to share it with others, right? Talents can be raw. That's usually when they're messy and you're unproductive and you're self-centered. You just know you're a speaker, so you want to talk all the time. All your friends can't stand you because you talk all the time. Right? That's being raw in the talent, right? But talents can be refined. How do they get refined? You recognize that this isn't about me putting my talent on display every 5 minutes I can. It's also kind of sitting back and learning who the other talents are in the room, and then seeing how I might be able to help them with my talent of speaking, rather than just blowing them out like, hey, this is my talent of great speaking. So you notice that's when they're refined, not in a big hurry to show how you've been made or built. Clifton, of course, has identified 34 of these. You got your top 5, you got that bottom 5. The top 10, you could say, are where we live. The top 5, you could call them the signature themes. They're the themes you're going to grab from the most. They're the most comfortable to you, so you grab them, right? The next set of talents in the hierarchy would be considered the supporting themes, 6 through 10, because they support the signature themes and they can look like signature themes sometimes. The middle group, the 11 through 25, that's the middling group. This is where people go, well, I have empathy. I'm surprised empathy isn't in my top 5. The question I'm going to ask you is, but do you lead with empathy? That's different than just having empathy. So you might feel, oh, okay, well, see, it's in the middling. It's in the middle of the groups. So sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't, but you don't lead with it. And then finally, that last group, 26 through 34, they're lesser talents, not weaknesses. They're just things that you don't naturally go towards. Some people are great at empathy. Some people are ready to say, well, okay, how do we fix this? The other person's going, didn't you just hear my story? Aren't you grieving with me? No, they're task oriented. So they want to go to the next thing, right? But they're not trying to be rude. It's just the way they're wired is task. The other person's wired by connection. If I tell my story, you'll feel connected to me. But if a connection person talks to a task person, guess what's going to happen? The task person is going to be like, inside, they're going, come on. You know how many things I got to do today? While the connection person's going, and then, because they think I'm making a big connection by telling this big story. All right? So once you start to see the different folks, and we'll talk more about that in these quadrants, you'll know how to approach. So how unique are we? Well, once again, there's the scripture there for you in terms of Psalm 139, that you're uniquely and wonderfully made. And it says here, I love how the psalmist said, and my soul knows it very well, how unique I am, because I'm wonderfully made by a wonderful God. That's fantastic. So how unique are we? Well, here's how the numbers roll out. To meet somebody with the same top 5 in the exact same order as your top 5, you'd have to meet 33 million people first before you'd see that happen. All right? To see somebody with the same top 10 as you, isn't that crazy? I'm having to move this here. This is blocking here. 447 trillion people before you meet somebody with the same top 10 in the same order as you. And then finally, we don't even have a word for this number. To find someone with the exact same 34 talents in the exact same order is 295 plus a whole lot of zeros. Again, this says you're unique, you're built that way on purpose, and there's things that God is going to do with you because he built you that way. The idea that he can build this many people and make them all unique is a miracle, right? None of us have the same fingertips in terms of the prints. Not one. Yet look at how many people, 7.6 billion people on the face of the earth. And then we're even more stratified if you look at our personalities, the culture, and everything else that affects how we live. So why do we say this? Be you. You don't need to be anybody else. I don't care how good they are at whatever they're doing. You don't have to be them. What's your way of doing that thing to the nth degree? Right? So this right here is showing you two different schemas here of the talents being put in the 4 major quadrants. Now, what you have at the top is the way Core Clarity breaks them out. On the bottom is the way that Strengths breaks them out. Now, what Core Clarity is Core Clarity is a group of strength enthusiasts, right, that came out. They loved this. I know Fitzpatrick, love her to death, she's great. The difference is that that group saw that some of these talents were, if you will, maybe ambidextrous, and a few of them, 12, are in a different category than they are here. But let's talk about the quadrants first, and then we can talk about the distinctions. So you notice blue, they agreed that blue is a good color for connecting. Talents that have to do with connecting. So true blue is an easy way to remember that. So connecting talents are simple, right? There's communication, empathy, harmony, includer. You can see that. The second group of talents here are the thinking talents. They agreed on green. I'm glad they did that. That makes it a little easier. So this is all about having that dialogue in your head. These are the talents that do that. Analytical, strategic, intellection, input. It's right there. Now, all they did was swap colors on when they were talking about influencing and executing. So with Core Clarity, influencing is purple. These are just the talents that are used to move others into action. It's like the old commercial. When E.F. Hutton speaks, everybody listens. They're trying to say he's that influential. If you're doing business with E.F. Hutton, you're probably doing good business because he's an influencer. All right? Then you see that last group is all about execution. These are the task people. They may not sit there in front of you and cry at movies and all this other stuff. To them, it's what do we do next? Okay, I got 20 more minutes here because I got to do this, I got to do that. They're worried about the time because time is the biggest enemy of anybody who's heavy in execution talents. So if you have 2 or 3 execution talents, you're going to be pretty intense, right? And especially if you have 4. Now, I know a gentleman that has all 5 of his top 5 are thinking talents. That guy is the quietest guy in the room, but when he finally speaks, he says the most intelligent things. Because while everybody else is talking, he just sits back. He observes and evaluates everything. He hears it, he runs it through the little mental trap. And then when people get exhausted of talking, then he'll say, hey, if I may. It seems to be that the problem is the approach could be, but here are the challenges to the approach. So what if we did this to right? You've been around those people that they're so smart, you felt dumb. So you didn't even talk because you could see that their mind was so connected to thoughts and the next progression and the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and they could spill over once they finally started talking. And you're just going, wow. Now you've also had people who outgraced you, right? So we're talking about connecting talents, like at church, for sure, people who have much more grace than you put up with different things. They probably are very high in blue talents, right? Because the connecting talents that's the friendly talents. Right, so the blue talents, friendly. I want to build a relationship. I want to talk to you. Thinking talents, I'm talking to myself. It's an internal thing that's going on. Influencing, hey, I want to get you to go do something. Execution, no, here's how I get it done. And all of us are some mixture of those 4 quadrants in our talents being in there. Right now, this helps a bit. Core Clarity came out with this key. They broke it down a little further. So they said the connecting talents, the blue talents, are used to do what? Create, develop, and sustain relationships with others over time. Notice above it, it's got the external. These are talents that you need other people to do them with you. You'll see that the right side of the same circle there, you see mobilize, which is getting other people to do things. It's not about building relationships so much as to connect people, but it is about showing up with gravitas, executive presence. When you walk into a room, people know you're not afraid to walk up to anybody. You start a conversation with somebody in the elevator because they're just that way, right? You're just used to motivating people and being a presence. Now you see at the bottom, you see that these are the internal talents, meaning that you just don't need other people to do these. So to think, you don't need other people to think, and you don't need other people to execute when you're ready to move and you've thought it through. Right? Now, if you look at the left side of this paradigm, what you see is it's about interaction. So when I interact with others, external, that means I'm connecting. When I interact with myself, I'm reflecting. The right side is all about motivation. Mobilizing is motivating others. The bottom here, energize, is motivating myself. I don't need you to stand over me to tell me what to do. I hate micromanaging because I'm a energized person. I'm a task person. Just be clear about what you want me to do and I'll go do it. Now you can almost see how a manager needs to manage these different types, right? The manager needs to let the connect person share about the weekend and what happened, right? Now you don't want them to go on all day, but they got to share. That's how they connect to the world. They got to connect. A good manager sees the influencers and goes, I'm going to put y'all on the sales team and the marketing team. Because all y'all want to do is tell people things and get people to go do things, right? The manager's looking at the energized people. He knows, okay, when I need to hand something off to somebody, it needs to be these people. Why? Because they're task oriented. They will push themselves to get it done. And then when I need to build a think tank, because we've got a new problem, we're trying to solve it, probably want to invite all the reflection folks in. People who are high in that thinking, because they'll take the thoughts to the level where it needs to go. And the wonderful thing is, some of you guys, all of us, some of us are a mixture of those, which is great. And some people, I've coached, have a talent in each one of the quadrants. Their issue is, I feel like I'm not good at anything since I'm able to understand and talk to everyone. And I have to show them that no, you're the glue that holds the team together, because you can understand the connect people. You can understand the mobilized people, you can understand the thinkers, and you can understand the task people because you have the talent there too. Plus an extra one somewhere, since it's 5, but we're looking at 4. All right. Now, if these people are on your team, you'll start to know who the connect people are because they'll always talk about people. Because that's what they're trying to do. Task people can always talk about what they got to do today. I'm busy. We got to hurry up and do this. Right? They might even be fidgeting a little bit while they're talking to you. So much movement there with these folks. The thinkers, you know, they will hardly say anything, but they're saying it up here. And they're kind of looking at you with the whole le penseur, the thinker pose from Rodin. They're just looking at you. Because in their head, they're having the conversation. And then the influencers, you know, they're the ones going, come on, you come with me. Here's what we're going to go do today. You can tell they take control, they're ready to go, and they're ready to influence people to go do something great. So now, when people walk up to you, imagine these quadrants. It's harder to understand the strength because some of the strengths can look alike, but maybe you can pick up the quadrant that's talking to you at that moment. Right? So your talents, we talked about this a little bit earlier, they can work for you or against you. Right? So this is my favorite expression here, is that coffee cup. Sometimes the people are brand new with their talents. They can't wait to run around and show you. So they're like the coffee here. Just at some point, you can't hold all the stuff that they're saying, and it overspills, and now it makes a mess. And now the other person listening to the person that's super raw with their talents and they're super excited. This is what happens to them. So your greatest strength could be your greatest weakness. On a job interview, you know now that we take it when they say what's great, you tell them what's great. You don't say, I'm a people person, because what does that mean? But see, if you have empathy, harmony, or relate, or any of those are people talents. So now I'll see how specific, instead of saying, yeah, I'm a people person, I can now say, well, actually, I love keeping harmony in the room. And I find myself relating to people very easily when I sit down and just talk to them for a few minutes. See, that says a lot more than just, well, I'm a people person, right? Well, I'm a critical thinker. What do you critically think about? Everything, just behaviors, just processes, just, right? Let's see, if I say I'm a strategic thinker, that means I like to make plans. I like to get the variables and make a plan and take them somewhere. Or if I say, yeah, I'm very analytical, meaning I really love details. And to me, I can pour into the details, and the details tells the story for me. And I love that. So it's better than saying I'm a critical thinker, right? Because again, that goes to anybody's interpretation. But when you give a specific talent that does the very thing, then now what you've done is you've made it vivid. You've made it compelling, okay? You need to be aware of how you are affecting people. If you're too much in your analytical, you might ask too many questions and the person's going, stop already. Why do you keep asking why? But what about this? But what about this? But what about this? Because the analytical wants details. So they're going to keep asking and asking, and and you're just getting like, are you challenging me? Is what people will think. It's like, no, the analytical just says, no, I'm just enjoying this ride. Give me more details, right? Just like the positivity enjoys the ride of people just sharing good news. They want to hear more good news, right? Now, we have this thing called the dimmer switch theory, which means that, with your talents, you can't stop being you, but you can evaluate, you can observe if you're turning your talents up too bright in the room And you could turn some of them down. Like at the moment, if you're at the funeral, people aren't looking for that positivity. They're in a grief mode. So you probably want to be empathy. So you might want to turn up empathy and maybe turn down the positivity just a little bit, just because of the context, right? You can't not be who you are, but you can decide if what you're saying is in context. So you are going to be you, but here are 3 things you just need to know already about context. What do we read in context? We read books in context, we read people in context, and we read situations in context. If you can do those 3 things, you will be conversationally intelligent, perhaps maybe even emotionally intelligent when others look at you, because you're not overbearing. You don't have to turn up real bright with your positivity when at the moment people need to feel the weight, what's going on. All right, so we dim down that positivity, we turn up that empathy, because it's compassion, that pathos that people buy as warmth. At that moment, you want to be warm because it's warmth sells every day. Right? Now what? So a lot of times people will take this assessment. I'll see them 3 months later. Hey, so tell me about your talents. I think I got bird watcher and they're because they don't remember it. I'm like, wait a minute. If you know what your talents are and you're not polishing them, you're not getting better. What are you doing? Like, this is an opportunity. So once you've taken the assessment and once you start to learn and you read what it says about what that talent does and how it behaves and how it interacts with the other talents, because remember, you're a combination of talents. So you're not going to always show people you're strategic first if you're a strategic number 1. So we have this little rhyme, because you have to create a rhyme for people to remember, right? So you need to assess your talents. Are they working for you or against you? Can you not read people? Are you not doing the context thing? Are you turned up too much? Or you're not turned up enough? Maybe you're on a job interview and you're very strategic, but you're not showing it because you're so nervous. Sometimes it could be that you need to turn it up because you haven't. Second, you need to finesse your talents. Take that journey from good to exceptional. Again, when you can be intentional about how you aim your talents and at the right time when it's called for, that is mastery. And people who master things get paid. It's just how it works. And third, attest. It's close, but maybe not exactly the perfect rhyme, to your strengths, because here's what I love about it. When people see how great you are with your strengths because you've learned them, then turn around and help other people see what's great about them. Right? It's not about just me knowing my strengths and going out there and changing the world. No, it's once I discover my strengths, I'm going to take the oxygen mask off of me, and now I'm going to put it on someone else who I can tell does not have compelling language to tell the world how they show up in it. Right? So it's all put together. I'm leaving room here for some questions. So I'm gonna give you some numbers. I know my analytics might want to hear some of this, and so here they are. So when they are focusing on utilizing their strengths, they are 3 times likely to report having an excellent quality of life. Why? Because when you're doing things that you have a strength in, you don't regret that. You don't feel like you're working with it. Now, other things can change it, like bad corporate culture. But if you're doing function-wise the thing that you love to do, you're going to be happier because your body's not yearning to go, man, I wish I could use my strategic. I wish we had a job where we could be more strategic. No, when you're in a job that's using the talents that you naturally have, that's a match, right? And this is why we want to know this. Those same people, they're 6 times more likely to be engaged in their jobs. Why? Because they're doing something that already gives them lift. I love working on doing things that allow me to use my strategic, my maximizer, my woo, my learner, my input. I love that. In fact, that's why I'm a coach, a trainer, and a keynote speaker, because all 3 of those 3 different tasks touches strategic, maximizer, woo, learner, input. So I'm having a field day here doing this. So I apologize if I'm coming off too happy and too positive, but hey, when you know who you are and God gave you those talents and you're using godly talents in a godly way, that's worship. Because you know you didn't give yourself those strengths. God did. So every time you're doing them, you can feel that lift. Because God's like, yeah, that's exactly why I gave it to you. Go do it. What did he tell Adam in the beginning? Go subdue the earth, fulfill it. Subdue it. Take it under control. Not go to the next job interview and then be cold in the sack and be dead like this because you're so afraid. What if you don't get the job? Because imposter phenomenon, new. Pray, and after you pray, show them what God gave you and say it in a compelling way. You won't sound like anybody else that's interviewing that day. And I've interviewed some people, I can tell you. I can tell the people who were well coached. I can also tell you the people that this was their job, they would blow up. It'd be perfect. And they can walk away from the interview, whether they get the interview or not. You can still tell they're okay. See, I want to bring that person in because I want to see how might you use those strengths that I saw you exhibit on my job site? Because here's what we're trying to do. See, now we're working together, we're collaborating rather than playing the pick me game, pick me, I hope you pick me, I really want this job. Different attitude. CEO of you, the CEO of the business, two CEOs talking. You should know your inventory very well because it's yours and you have a language. All right, people use their strengths every day, have 7.8% greater productivity. This is what we find out when we talk to teams after we've done doing the whole exercise. We'll come back in 3 months later to talk to the team and see how they're doing, what they're using, how they're doing better at what they see, and maybe what they haven't changed yet. And we help them with that. And then, of course, the teams who then receive the strengths back feedback, what we tell them even after that, they raise it another tick. 8.9% greater profitability for the companies. So productivity leads to profitability, and companies like to keep you around. And then if you're doing what you're already made to do and you know how to articulate it and you can say it compellingly and you're doing it with a team of other assets, that should be a good time more than it is a bad time. But I know corporate culture is kind of crazy, so I'm with you on that. Let's do something together. And then I'll take any question that you have, and I want you to ask me anything. It does not matter. I love questions to let me know that you were listening and not playing Tetris or something while I was up here talking. All right, so that's okay. So we're gonna do this game. This is what I do with a lot of people when I come in and we do their whole team. We pick a talent, we talk about what's great about the talent, what's not so great about the talent, and then what we might do to offset the not so great part about it. So let's look at focus. What's great about focus? These people are not easily distracted. Why? Because they're focused. They put literally up the blinders to get things done. But what could be not so great about focus? Well, if you have tunnel vision now, because of that, you miss the ancillary things that are going on around you, and some of those can be very important things. You can be so focused on your job that your wife and kids suffer, right? You can be so focused on whatever that you miss something else that should have been obvious, but because your focus was off, right? So then as an offset, then if that's the problem with focus, what might they do? Right? And the focused person might need to take breaks, get up from the thing that they're so focused on to make sure that they put in their daytime to interact with people if that's the problem. Right? You can do two things at once. Right? Now, let's take the first one, responsibility. And I want you guys to unmute. We're going to talk this one out. We're going to work this one out. So if I ask you, what's great about someone with a responsibility talent, what would you say?
They feel obligated to get the job done no matter what, at all
High-
costs.
High ownership.
Yes, absolutely. Anyone else? What's great about responsibility? Are they trustworthy people?
Yes, trustworthy and little supervision.
Yes. When they tell you they're going to do it, they are. If we're looking at a building, they're not the renters of the building. They're the owners of the building, because responsibility people, that's what they do. They own the situation. So now we've said some great things. Is there a not so great thing about responsibility?
If you check on their status, they might be annoyed that you're asking. They'll be like, I told you I'm doing it on this date, now leave me alone.
Yeah, that's true. It does happen. Anything else?
Lack of
They-
flexibility if things come up.
Oh, okay. Anything else?
Take on others' responsibilities.
I'm sorry, say again.
They take on other people's
Mm.
responsibilities.
Yes, because they're used to being responsible. So if no one else does it, if the boss says, hey, who's going to help us with the assignments of the new parking garage? The responsibility person looks around, nobody raises their hand. I'll do it. So the challenge here with responsibilities is if they're not careful, and thank you, Carol, for that. If they're not careful, if they don't know how to delegate, they can take on too much stuff. And if they take on too much stuff, now they won't feel responsible because they took on so much stuff that they're not being responsible right now because they're now behind. Because these titles or tasks or things that they had to do are time intensive. And all they saw was, well, no one else is going to do it. I guess I have to do it. And they raised their hand. So if they're not careful, they can get overloaded and judgment starts to come in. Because then they're going to say, well, how come I can get this stuff done, but nobody else works as hard as me up here? Now, they may not say that out loud, but sometimes responsibility people have it in their head that, well, if we want this done right, I should probably do it anyway. Nobody else here seems to care. And I've been called in many times to come in and mediate between people who have responsibility and achiever. Can you imagine having responsibility and achiever? I have to get it done because I have an achiever, but I told Tom I have to get it done. So now I double have to get this done. So sometimes two talents that are somewhat similar can galvanize and be real intense. Mhm. So if that's a challenge with responsibility, how might we work around that?
Learn to delegate.
Yeah. Anyone else? That's good. What might the responsibility person do to not be overwhelmed by too much responsibility?
Know
Not
their
take on-
limits.
Go ahead, Vicky.
Sorry, know their limits.
Yes. Set a boundary, right? That's the cheat code, by the way. Set a boundary. I'll make sure that I'm responsible for this many things today, and I won't go over that number. I'll be responsible just for 5 things today, not 15. I can stretch this stuff out the week, especially because not all of it's urgent. Right? And the other voice, I didn't catch you were saying?
I can't remember because Vicky's was so good.
Vicky's a hard act to follow, isn't she? Let's look at positivity. Let's say something great about positivity now.
It can be uplifting.
Yes, an encourager. Positivity person is a natural encourager. What else is great
Good
about
for
positivity?
morale.
Yes, good for morale. It starts to slide, they'll try to pick it up. Anything else about positivity? Okay, let's talk about, we're going to say something negative about positivity. Is that even right? Can we do that? What could be a challenge with positivity?
They can drive
Knowing that
people nuts.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Who wants Mrs. Sunshine all around all the time? You know, we got work to do.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, that's that not reading it in context thing, huh?
Refuse to hear problems.
Yes. Tell us about that, Carol.
Say someone is being harassed at work. The positive person won't acknowledge the other person is being harassed. Oh, you're just complaining.
That's excellent. Yes. Because positivity people want to keep it positive. And if you bring up something negative, they'll say that, or they might say this. Hey, Tom, you know, that argument that you got in with your wife, she's really upset. No, she's not. I've been married to her for a long time. She knows I'm a very positive person. She knows I didn't mean anything by it. No, she's not. No, I'm looking at her right now, Tom. She looks upset. You better go over there and talk to her. No, I know her very well. She wouldn't. See, that's that positivity saying, it can't be that bad. There's no way it could be that bad. Meanwhile, wife is sitting over there seething. So positivity can look insincere, right? Because sometimes somebody can come up to you and tell you what a problem is that they're having. What does positivity want to do? Solve it, fix it. And then another person's like, I just really wanted you to hear how my day was. I didn't want you to try to turn it into a positive thing so we can move on, just because it was making you cramped to hear something that wasn't positive. So a lot of times people don't want to talk to the positivity person. They look for the empathy person. Because you know what the empathy person is going to do? They're just going to sit and listen. And they're going to draw the other person in, right? So how might we fix this with our positivity friend who just doesn't know a filter and is just trying to pump Happy Monday into every day of the week when you first walk in the door?
know when and what to say and how much positivity to throw out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's another boundary now, isn't it? Just understanding the.
Learn to
people-
read the room.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So good. Let's pick one now. We went and did those. Maybe you've taken the assessment, maybe you have one and you're very curious about it, but anyone want to volunteer a talent for us to break down?
Can we break down a woo?
Yeah, we're gonna break down woo. Woo stands for win others over. These people are naturally willing to come in and be warm and do whatever it takes to win people over. They're usually very, very friendly people, right? And they can sometimes be bothered if they can't win people over. Because they're saying, what happened to my woo? Why didn't it work? Why didn't my charm work? Why didn't I get everybody? So they can have 20 people in a room, 19 people like them. Guess who they're going to focus on? The one person that doesn't like them, because they're going to say, well, I need to woo them. How did I not get them? Why did they not pick up on my charms and all that? So what would y'all say is the great thing about a woo?
Probably
They
good collaborators.
Yeah. That's
They
good.
confront a negative situation or a negative person and try to turn it to a positive.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, because they want to be liked. And they realize if I throw in on the flame with everybody, that makes it worse. But I want to be liked by all these people. So let me pick the popular side and then kind of try to speak to that. Anything else that's great about a woo? And if you haven't, it's okay to go ahead and brag a little bit or both. They make connections. Woos are usually great networkers. If you know a woo, go talk to them and go hang out with them at a networking event, because they'll walk up and introduce you to everybody, because woos are super extroverts.
Mhm.
Right now you could have a bunch of internal talents. So maybe your woo isn't as strong, but most people that have woo in their top 5, they can warm up to almost anybody. And at a networking event, you need woos, because woos don't see a barrier, but they don't have the same barrier that introverts would have at a networking event.
What is
So-
the opposite of a woo?
Relator.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great question. Was that you, Carol, that asked that one? No, it's me. Okay. Yeah. So here's the difference between a woo and a relator, right? So a woo is like this. A woo has this many friends. Okay. But the relationship's that deep. A relator has this many friends, but the relationship is this deep. Woos want to know everybody, be in everybody's business in a sense, kind of know everything, shake hands, kiss babies, smoke the cigars, show up at all the big events. The relator would rather be home with just 3 good friends from college or high school or church and just watch a movie together and just kind of laugh. And then they'll hang out with those same 3 or 4 people. They don't like big crowds. They like people, but they realize in order to go deep, which is what relators do, because in order to relate to you, I have to go deep, I have to ask questions. They know you can't have a bunch of friends. So they don't necessarily try. They have an inner circle, and that's who they stick with. Where woos are like, hey, let's go out tonight. We might not know who we might meet at the thing tonight. So let's just go. Another person's going, I'm just not energized by meeting even more people. I got my 3 good friends. I'm good. So that's a big difference between the relator and the woo, right? And you can see if they're married together, if they're married, they're going to clash. Because if the husband's a woo and the wife's a relator, let's just say the wife has a 50th birthday party. Guess who she's inviting to her 50th birthday party? Those 3 good friends. But guess what her woo husband's going to do? It's your 50th birthday party. You only turned 50 once. I invited everybody from church, everybody from work. I invited a whole bunch of, we're going to have a whole bunch of people here tonight. And she's just looking at him like, that's not my thing. You know me. I'm happy with just the 3 girls from church, the 3 girls from college. We were going to just go out and do some mani-pedis. I didn't need a house full of 50 people. That's you doing it the way you would like to do the party. Oh, well, excuse me. I'm just a person trying to have a good time here. I only invited 50 people that love you to death on your 50th birthday. You see the argument? You see it? Relator and woo. There it is right there. Boom. Now, can they work through it? Of course. But they have to really understand, look, the woo is going to want to invite people. And then the woo's got to understand, hey, the relator's just cool with just the 3 or 4 people that they invited. No fuss, no muss. It's a great question. So what would be the challenge then for the woo? So we know what's good about woo. What would be the not so great part about woo?
When to relinquish no winning, or not winning them over, I should say.
Yeah. They could obsess over the one party, the one person at the party that didn't like them, even though they had 25 people love them to death. They'll obsess over the one person that didn't like them and are trying to figure out why they don't like them. Right? And so you can see where that could be kind of harmful. Like in high school, it would play out as if one person didn't like somebody in high school. What'd you do? You told your friends, you got everybody to not like them. That's a very woo thing. So I need everybody to like me. I need people to. So when it's very raw, when woo is immature, you'll see it's very, very self-focused. When it's refined, a woo can bring people together because they're not afraid to initiate conversations with all types of people. That's why they're great for companies. If a company's trying to expand and bring more people on, because a woo's not afraid to start a conversation with anybody. Right, so you can see that. So what would be the workaround then for the woo who then is so worried about not everybody not liking them?
Understanding that when to let go.
Yeah. I mean, they did kill Jesus, right? As great as Jesus was, they still found a way to kill him. So if Jesus can have enemies and people hate him, why is the woo upset that there's somebody that actually doesn't like them out there? Right? It's kind of like unrealistic to think that everybody's got to like you. But see, to them, that's the game. I got to win others over. I got to see if I can get it done. You know, if they're not careful, they can get stuck there. So what about this? Let's look at the last quote, and then I want to hear your questions and what we can go with it. So Dr. Don Clifton, again, this is one of the big reasons why I like Dr. Clifton is because he's a believer. He's a Christian. And he was trying to understand that tension between theology and his psychology. His psychology is looking at what's wrong with people, the osises, the itises, and all this sort of stuff. And we're creating new names for it and some Freudian stuff and blah, 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 right? Whereas he'd go to church and he'd hear about how we're wonderfully made, how we're God's workmanship, and you could see the cognitive dissonance. So he and others like Martin Seligman, who was a contemporary of his time, said, hey, why don't we look at what's right with people as opposed to fixating on what's wrong with them? And psychology had done that for many years up until this positive-based psychology started to come out. And so, you know, that's Dr. Clifton to be one of the forebears in the front. He's known as the father of positive-based psychology. And, you know, Martin Seligman's right there with him, and a few others since then that came out. So, questions, thoughts, comments about this, how you might apply it, what it means. The floor is yours.
I just want to say this is the second Clifton Strengths webinar that I've attended this week. You are amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And thank you for choosing 2 of my strengths to analyze.
Awesome. Well, that worked out. Anyone else? Thoughts about this? How you might apply it? Can you help somebody along who maybe doesn't see their strengths? What do you think?
PJ.
Yes.
Hi, this is Geneva. Can we go back? I took the Clifton Strengths, I guess it's been about 2 years ago. And my top 5, harmony, empathy, discipline, individualization, and arranger. Can we go back to that chart on discipline? Yes.
Right here?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as, yes, let's go across that because.
Okay.
Yes.
So the first one was, remind me?
It's the first one is harmony.
Harmony. Okay. So we know automatically harmony is one of the blue talents. It's a connecting talent. It's a relational talent. So harmony, what does it do? What's great about harmony? It seeks the consensus. It's not trying to start a forest fire. It's saying, let's have a campfire and enjoy roasted greenies. Let's don't turn this into a forest fire where everything gets singed. That's the harmony person. The harmony person is there to say, I think we can find consensus. People like harmony people will say things like, look, Tom, I think you're right. Paul, I think you're right. I think you're both saying the same thing. You're just coming at it from, if that's not a harmony move, I don't know what that is. So harmony people are great at getting that consensus and keeping the peace. It's okay to have a fire. We just don't want a raging fire. Right now, what could not be so great about harmony is if they are very scared of conflict, very conflict avoidant, they can jump in and try to stop every conflict. But as you know, conflict's not always bad. Sometimes we need to let people say what they're saying as long as they're being respectful, because we're going to hear two different perspectives. And probably what we can do is take the best of each perspective and marry it and make one solution that everybody can like. But if I'm too harmonious, I might not like the idea that people are starting to talk a little louder, and I might try to shut it down before we ever get a chance to really figure out what's happening. So harmony people have to be careful that they don't shut it down too fast, right? Or let it be to where they just leave. They're just so afraid of the conflict and the non-peace that they just leave, right? Because they're saying, I don't want to deal with that. That's not my problem. That's between Tom and Paul. And see, that wouldn't be helpful because you all got to work together. But usually harmony folks will try to do something or say something, but they just got to be careful that they don't shut that down too quickly. Right? And they definitely have to speak what they're doing, right? Because you might think, what's the best way to do peace here? But unless you speak it, Paul won't know what you're trying to do, Tom won't know what you're trying to do, and either one of them will think you're taking sides. So a good harmony person, a refined harmony, will say something like, hey, listen, Paul, what I liked about what you said was you said this, 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 and this. I think that's effective, actually. What I appreciate about what you said, Tom, is you said this, this, and this, which might be the one thing that helps with what Paul's talking about over here. And so now you're able to, so when you speak and show people how your brain arranges it, because you have a ranger too. So a ranger and harmony working together or taking those thoughts and saying, okay, let's put this back together because this is about to fall apart.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Who else? Who else has a good question or a comment? Or... It's okay.
Strength
Go ahead.
Finders book. I really
Go
like
ahead.
the Strength Finders book, particularly the second part where it tells you if you know what your people's strengths are, how they like to be managed.
That's great. What's your PhD in, Carol?
Nuclear physics.
Physics, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Well, let me land the plane then for everyone. We're right at 11, a little over. So I'll land the plane and just put it to you this way. Okay, because I think this is good. By the way, that's my social media stuff. You can get on there, connect with me at any time. We can have this conversation further, especially in Geneva. If you want to sit down and grab breakfast or lunch, we can go through all yours in more depth and sit down and talk about how you can then put together a plan to apply them.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So here's what we need to know about strengths. Number one, everybody has talents. Everybody. God doesn't build junk. You weren't made out of spare parts. You're made out of particular parts that God chose to give you. The other good thing about strengths is you can learn them, you can grow in them. And here's the thing, there's no cap to your strengths. I don't know how good you can be, Geneva, with your harmony. I don't. There is no cap. God didn't put a cap on how good we can be with these strengths and talents. Right? God's a great God, an omnipotent God, an all-powerful God, an omniscient God. And when he created with the same mindset. Right? Third thing, you don't have to be anybody else. You just need to be the best version of you, which means not just a bumper sticker phrase. How do I pour more into the things that give me energy? And then conversely, how do I disassociate with the things that drain me? Because we don't want that push and pull the whole time of you trying to step forward and then being drained at the same time and then stepping forward and then being drained again, right? People talk about the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? Well, there's a piece to that. With your strengths, when you know that's what you have on the job interview, you have calm, because this is not your opinion of who you are and how you act. This is how you, notice the language, this is how you grade out. Meaning you have a metrics. that a CEO can use. And as a CEO, I love metrics because metrics tell me where I'm at and I can plot. I can use my strategic to go somewhere. So when you bring your Clifton strengths with you, even if they don't know what a maximizer is and an individualization, the thing is, that's 50+ years of social science saying this is who you are, this is how you behave, this is how you think, this is how you believe, and this is how you move about the cabin. Not your opinion. So if you've got great talents and everyone does, it's not your opinion that you're responsible. You are. If you're telling that to me, that makes me relax, and that's very compelling, because most people getting jobs today, a lot of them are just people that don't really want the job. They don't stay very long, the turnstile. Then the bosses get scared of who to hire. So then they create more and more assessments that they don't have to hire and waste money hiring the wrong person again. Well, we can help that interviewer. Pray up first. Then remember, you're the CEO of you. You know your talents better than anybody. Other people can help bring them out, but you know who you are. And so if you stick with that, I promise you, you'll be a lot more confident on these job interviews. In fact, if you have to go in front of 4 people, doesn't change it. You're still that 5 talents that you have, and you know exactly what's great about them, and you know what the weak part can be of them. So you polish, because I don't know, no one on this side of heaven knows how great you can truly be. And with that, that is my time.
PJ, thank you very, very much. Great information. I think I saw some comments, people going, this was a great presentation. I think everybody, I already know there's a couple of people who emailed me saying that they couldn't watch it this morning. Will it be posted? Yes, we'll get this up on the Career USA YouTube channel for other people to view. So PJ, thank you very, very much for your time today.
You're
All
very
right.
welcome.
Great. All right. Coming up next week, Crystal Yates will be with us to talk about negotiations, closing the deal for what you are worth. If you have not put your 30-second introductions into the chat window, please let us know you're with us today. That way I can update the roster and I'll get that out to everybody this afternoon. See who else on the roster, on the list. Who else can you help today? Look over the list. See if you have a contact at one of these companies that somebody's asking about. Maybe you could be helpful to somebody else. Career DFW and Career USA, we're putting on training 4 days a week. Next Tuesday, Ruth Lipsig will be with us for LinkedIn Tuesdays to talk about how to drive recruiters to your LinkedIn profile. Next Wednesday, we actually have a real interview scheduled. So come join us next Wednesday. When we don't have an interview scheduled, we will go and replay one of our old sessions when we're online. But next week we'll be online only with a real interview. So please come join us. Next Thursday, being the 5th Thursday of the month, I'm going to do a presentation on successful job searches. Focus on these 4 areas. We'll talk about the 4 areas of your job search I think you need to focus on. So come join us on next Thursday at 1 p.m. Central for that. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career DFW Facebook page and the Career USA YouTube channel. On the Career USA YouTube channel, click on playlist, and then down below, pick the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, and down where it says View Full Playlist, when you click on that, you can click and you'll see all the videos that we've posted up there. We've got 480 videos, I think, as I looked as of yesterday. Just remember that if you're looking at any of North Dallas videos, you probably want to start about 25 to 30 minutes into when the speaker will start, because the first 25 minutes is us taking care of some housekeeping stuff. This video won't be up until late tonight. Since I am out of town, I'm sort of restricted by when I'm going to be available to get the Wi-Fi to be able to get things moved up. But as soon as I can get it up this afternoon, I will. All right, please come join Walt and the gang at Jason's Deli today. You got to eat lunch, northeast corner of Parker and Preston. They've got potatoes, they've got sandwiches, they've got soup, just all sorts of great food, big old salad bar. Come join us. And don't forget, they've got ice cream with chocolate sauce you can put on top, and that's the best. So come join us today at Jason's Deli. Everybody else, thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great weekend, everybody. PJ, once again, thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, PJ and Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.